What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Rob's house. Today we're working on the Corvette again. I'm actually kind of late to the party on this mod, but we're gonna be installing an AEM Wideband O2 sensor on this car. As you've seen in some of my previous videos, I've been kind of like learning the basics of tuning and just sort of learning as I go. And if you know anything about tuning, you know that you can tune using your narrowband O2 sensors for like partial throttle closed loop stuff, but these cars go into open loop mode either above a certain RPM or above a certain throttle input, kind of depending upon what car you have. The car will go into either open loop mode just in general, or it'll go into power enrichment mode if you're actually hammering it. At which point your narrowband O2 sensors won't function anymore and you won't actually get any fuel trim readings out of them. So I'm gonna just install a wideband today in the car. I've actually already went ahead and got started, so I'll show you where I'm at so far, and then we'll kind of button up the install and I'll show you kind of the finished product and how it works. The cool thing with this AEM wideband that I purchased, they have two different versions of this. They have one, I think the model numbers are 0330 and 0334, and I have the 0334. The 0330 just has like a wire coming off of it that you can attach to whatever you want, basically, as like an accessory output. But the 0334 actually has an OBD2 pass-through. So what's cool about that is it plugs into your OBD2 port, and then it has a pass-through, so you can plug your HP Tuner's device into the pass-through, and HP Tuner, everything functions as it normally would, but we can also log the air-to-fuel ratio coming off the wideband O2 sensor. So that's super useful for tuning. So I wanted to try this unit out. It's something that, you know, if it works well in this car, I might try on other cars in the future, whether it be the Viper or, you know, other cars down the road. But I figured like this is something super, super useful and really cool because it's kind of plug and play with the HP Tuner system. So we'll test that at the very end. First we'll do the install, and then I'll plug the computer in and we'll see if we can actually log some data. All right, so let's get under the car real quick and I'll show you guys what I've done so far. All right, so here underneath the Corvette, that's the back of the car. Here's our X pipe. And now with the American Racing header set up, the narrow bands, you can kind of see one of my narrow bands up there, and the other narrow band's right back there. It's kind of hard to see. I can't really stick my hands up in there, but anyway, you kind of get the picture, kind of get the idea of where that stuff is. Now, in the X pipe of this exhaust setup, there is a bung for an O2 sensor that is capped off, right? So I just took the cap off that. That's where I installed this Bosch wideband air-to-fuel ratio sensor under the car. Now, since I want the wire to come up on the driver's side and this bung is on the passenger side of the car, I had to feed the wire. I fed it actually, like I took this bolt out and fed it around this bolt so that it stays under the heat shield, and it kind of pokes out. You can't really see where it pokes out, but it's up there, and then it's fed up to the engine bay. So, all right, so now if we take a look in our engine bay here, I actually have the wire coming up here, and I fed it through behind. Oh, actually the plastic's not even, took this plastic piece off. Kind of see the wire down there. And then to get into the cabin, you can actually, if I open the door, you can kind of see that one bolt right here. If you take that out, you can kind of actually peel the outer portion of this A-pillar back and feed the wire underneath it, and then put your bolt back in. So we have the wires coming into our cabin. It's a really self-explanatory plug-and-play procedure. I haven't tucked everything in yet because I'm still testing it, but basically you have 2 plugs that are different sizes that go into the back of our actual AEM gauge, and split from that is, of course, you can't really see it, but I have it plugged into the OBD2 right now. That is the OBD pass-through. Pretty simple plug-and-play installation. The only other thing that you got to do is it has a power and ground coming off this wiring harness also. There's 2 wires here. There's the one from the actual wideband, and then there's one from one of the plugs, the OBD plug, that actually gives power and ground to the unit. Now you can connect this to any power source that you want, but obviously you want to connect it to one that is either tied into just the electrical switched power on and off your car, or the ignition. So I went into my flex fuel sensor because the flex fuel sensor actually only is active when the car is actually running. The flex fuel sensor actually plugs in line with one of the coil packs you can't really see it, but I have it tucked. So this is where it plugs in line to the rear coil pack on the driver's side to get power to the flex fuel sensor. And basically what you have is you have 3 wires. You have a purple and blue wire, you have a black wire, and you have a white wire. The purple and blue wire is your switched power. The black wires are ground, as you would imagine, and the white wire is the actual sensor output. Now the actual sensor output is the one that you pin into the ECU. We don't want to touch that wire, we just want to touch the switched power and ground wires. And what that'll do is, so if I just key the car on, if I key the electric on, the gauge will not light up, okay? But when I actually start the car, then it lights up. And I already tested everything. As you saw, those plugs were unplugged because I now have to button everything up, tuck all those wires in. And I went ahead and actually, I found this gauge pod design online, and I extended the base, and the guy who had remixed it on Thingiverse, he made the outside like a little thicker to make it sturdier, but it actually was, because of that, the diameter of the inside was too small to actually fit a gauge, so it wasn't the proper size. You had to do some like shaving and stuff. So I modified the CAD design to have a longer base. Actually, you can see side by side here his original. You won't be able to tell the size of the hole, but you can see the original base was kind of shorter, and with the gauge installed, it was kind of top heavy, like it wanted to tip over. So I just extended the base almost all the way to the front of the gauge pod. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually mount the gauge pod. I'm just going to use double-sided tape and mount it like right behind where that first piece of leather is, kind of like where, like on this piece that's in between the outer leather piece and then the speaker honeycomb plastic cover thingy. I'm going to just kind of tape the pod on there, and then we'll have the wires running out the back. The pod has a little tiny hole in the back for your cables, and so what we'll do is we'll run the cables and kind of tuck them in here, and then obviously, you know, you have what needs to go to the engine bay going to the engine bay, and then you have your OBD going to your OBD, and then we can tuck the rest kind of underneath the carpet here. Should be a pretty clean install when it's done. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that before I buttoned everything up. I'm gonna actually put the exhaust plate cover back on it. As you know, if you have a C7 Corvette, the X pipe is covered by this like this giant like metal skid plate. So I still got to put that back on, but I didn't do that yet because I wanted to show you where I actually put the O2 sensor, and then you know, clean up all the wires. I'll show you the finished product with the gauge installed, and then we'll you know, actually turn the car on, plug our computer in, and make sure that we can actually log data. So I'll be right back. All right guys, check it out. So I'm all done with this install. I buttoned everything up. I already showed you under the hood. I buttoned everything up here, so we no longer have, you know, tons of wires over here. I actually have my HP Tuners device plugged into the OBD pass-through. If we get into the car, I can actually fire it up for you. Ignore the rag here. I'm just waiting for the, I actually had to use some glue, unfortunately. My 3M double-sided tape wasn't enough to hold this down. So I'm just waiting for the glue to dry, but anyway, that's where my wideband will sit. I wanted it to be kind of an easy install and something kind of easy to remove if I decided I didn't want it anymore. So yes, there's wires exposed here. I know it's not like the cleanest look in the entire world, but it'll do for my purposes. I don't really mind. It's enough in the corner over there that it's not really too much of an eyesore. Let's fire the car up. I have my valves closed, so it's not super loud, so I can talk to you guys. So if you notice, it says heat when I first turn this on. That will change when it heats up enough, and we'll get an air to fuel ratio reading. There it is. Now notice if I hit mode here, like we can go to lambda. If we go to lambda, see, I now have the lambda reading, but I actually kind of like having AFR on the actual display. With that said, I also have HP Tuners over here, and I've set some stuff up. So first of all, you got to make sure that you log a few things. So if we actually go into the tune, we see that our virtual volumetric efficiency table, so our speed density table here, we have engine speed and we have a pressure ratio, which is our manifold absolute pressure divided by our barometric pressure. So you got to make sure that you're logging both of those things, which I am. You can see the manifold absolute pressure and the barometric pressure. I defined a user-defined pressure ratio that I can use for my row axis here, and then the columns are just RPM. So if I actually start scanning, we will see this is logging EQ ratio error. So this is the commanded equivalence ratio, which right now should be 1 because it's stoic, and this is the EQ error. You can see we're ever so slightly lean, but that's okay. If I kind of rev around, I have it set to not display anything unless I hit the cell 10 times. So if I was tuning this, I'd obviously have to log a lot of data. Also, if I look in here, I also did my MAF sensor. This is I mean, it's going to jump around a lot, but that is the same thing, but for my MAF sensor. It's just my MAF frequency in hertz, and then my equivalence ratio error. And the way that you get this to work is all you have to do in HP tuners, turn the car off so you can hear what I'm saying. All you have to do in HP tuners here is you add this wideband EQ ratio 1. So if you just do add channel, so if I click anywhere, right click anywhere, I go to add channel, and I just type in WB. See this highlighted wideband EQ ratio 1? You don't want there's two of them. There's the ratio and there's the voltage. You want the ratio, obviously. That's actually our pass-through. That's actually coming off of our wideband that we just installed. Now, not to be confused with any of these external, these are like some of the pro features in, you need the pro features in HP tuners to access these, and there is an AEM X Series wideband here. That's not what we're going to log, because this is the one that uses the pass-through that works with HP tuners. We just log the generic SAE wideband EQ ratio 1, which is really cool that it just kind of piggybacks on the factory CAN bus. It is the 30-00334 is the one that I bought. So the 0330 is just the regular AEM wideband, where you would just have a wire that you would have to connect and then use the pro feature cable in HP tuners. But if we use the 0334, which has the pass-through, we can just plug it into our OBD, and we just leave it there. We leave it always plugged in, and whenever we need to plug our HP tuners device in, or you know, any device that we want to plug into our OBD, it's fine. We can do that. It won't mess with anything. It just works as a pass-through. So this is super cool. I'm really, really happy with this. This thing, like, it wasn't that expensive. It was a couple $100. I don't remember off the top of my head what I paid. I want to say I paid like $250 for it. I got it from a seller on Amazon. They're either $250 or $300 for the kit. I don't remember. And it comes with everything you need. It comes with the wideband sensor. It comes with obviously the gauge pod, and then all of the cables that you need. And then all you need is just a gauge pod mount. So like my 3D printed one here, which it's like reflecting really bad, but anyway, you get the idea. It's pretty sweet, pretty simple setup. I'll definitely use this on other cars, I think. It kind of makes me want to replace the Innovate wideband that I have in the Viper with the AEM one, because then I could like really clean up that tune. I cleaned it up as much as I could in closed loop, but open loop was actually okay when I got it. The only like lean spikes and stuff I was seeing in that car were happening in closed loop. So I pretty much got that car cleaned up. I'm not super worried about it, but it would be cool to have a wideband in there for tuning purposes. Although we're thinking about going Motec, because we're thinking about doing twins on it. So if I do that, then I guess I don't really need an additional wideband, because I can plug right into the Motec for that. But if you have HP tuners, like, this is the way to go, because it's so easy. So I mean, you can go with the pro feature cable if you want. That's fine. I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying it's super easy to be able to just plug into your OBD2, and you still have an OBD plug. It's a pass-through, so you can still, like, it operates as normal. You just leave that thing plugged in all the time and you're good to go. I figured this would be a nice addition to the Corvette and give us some data, and I can really, like, clean up this tune now. Although it honestly, it seems pretty close as is. I mean, JT did a great job on this. So this was really more of just a learning exercise to learn how to not even really install the wideband, because that's the easy part, but how to like set up the graphs in HP tuners and actually do the data logging. And the best part about this, because it's a wideband, is it doesn't matter if I'm in power enrichment mode or not. It will always it'll just sort of work. And remember, this is equivalence ratio error that it's logging. So the error is dependent upon what is commanded. So if I'm in power enrichment and I'm commanding 1.3 or something, 1.3 lambda, that's fine. I don't actually have to change this table because it's an error calculation. It's percent error. Pretty cool stuff. So anyways, I know kind of a short video, a little bit nerdy, a little bit techie, but if you're into tuning, I just figured I'd share this with you guys, show you that it does work right out of the box, no problem. As usual, I hope this video was helpful, and I hope this video is entertaining, and I'll see you guys next time.
Reach for the stars, 'cause we're aiming high.